Now I'm going to go into the sample reports folder here, and I'll use the drill down report here in order to demonstrate some of the features that you can use when viewing a report. All right, so this is a fairly straightforward report. You can expand different sections, drill down into England, drill down into different cities, and see the companies that are located in those different locations. Now, the HTML viewer is this toolbar up here. Okay? So this gives you a lot of capabilities when working with reports. So you can do things like navigate the pages of the report, zoom in and out, find data in the report, and perform various other kinds of actions. Now, this particular report doesn't have any parameters, but input controls for any parameters would appear above the toolbar here if there were any for the report. Okay, and they would appear below these breadcrumbs that always let you know where you are within Report Manager. All right, so let's look at all the controls here. First up, we have various navigation controls. So we have go to first, as you'd imagine, go to the previous page, you can type in a page directly, go to the next page, and go to the last page. Now, keep in mind that Report Manager only shows the first page of a report. And so in this case, I only have one page, but very frequently I'll look at a report and it'll say one or more likely two question mark. That means that it knows that it has enough data for at least something on the next page, but it hasn't scrolled through all of the data to be able to tell you how many pages you have in the report. So notice that this is actually disabled. If I click on it, it doesn't do anything because in this mostly collapsed state, it only fits on a single page. But if I continue to expand different parts here and scroll down and expand the United States, okay, it still isn't able to tell how many pages if it was fully expanded. Okay, so just to show you that, I'm going to go back over here and let's do customer contact list. Okay, much longer report. Now we have page 1, always shows you the first page by default first, and then it says 2 question mark. So again, it knows that there's enough data for a second page, but it doesn't know how many pages. So we can go to the second page, go to the third page, and so forth. Now, one thing to point out about this that might be a little bit confusing is that Report Manager, actually Reporting Services, has a certain page size depending upon the rendering format that you're using. And so if I take this scroll bar right here, if I can unstick my mouse, there we go, I can scroll down. This is what Reporting Services considers to be one page. Okay? And then I can go to the next page and so on. So it's often very handy to just click on the last page button here, go out, it runs through all the data, renders it, puts in the different page breaks, and now knows that there's 17 pages in this report. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here to the drill down report. It'll display it once again, and there we go. All right, then there's the zoom control here. So by default, you view a report at 100%. And if we look at this drop-down box, you can see that we can go down to 10%. Very small report there. Or we can go up to 500% if you're really having a bad day and just the fonts are too small. Again, I'm at a fairly low resolution, so this on a higher resolution, you'd be able to see a lot more of the report and be a lot more usable. And of course, it has a whole page option, so it's going to display the whole page. So actually, let me drill down a little bit to give you a better idea how that feature works. I'll expand several of these, and in fact, I'll expand Canada as well. Okay, so notice that no matter how much I drill down, because I have it set to whole page, it's going to keep a single page's worth of data in view, even if it has to reduce the size of the font. And I'll come down here. I don't think I've expanded the United States yet. There we go. And so you can see that because Reporting Services doesn't really understand how to treat this as a single page because it's a drill down report, kind of a special case. It just keeps it making it smaller and smaller. But then the other thing I can do is fit to the page width. And now that brings it up. It's the width of the page, and I can scroll down through it. So that's probably an option that you're more likely to use more often. But again, in a typical report like that one that I switched over to just a moment ago, you're just going to have rows and columns for the most part probably, and so those options can make a little bit more sense. So I'm going to come back over here to 100% so we see what the default initial view is. Okay, then there's a search box here. And so let me come down here. Let's see this. Oh, there's no Alaska. Let's go with Illinois. So if it's a long report, I can come to this search box and type in Illinois. Hit enter, and it'll take me right to the first instance of that. I can click on Find Again, and it'll take me to that same place. And then I can click on Next, and it'll take me to the next instance of it. Of course, there's only one Illinois, at least that's in view, and so the entire report has been searched. So let's also do this. Let's drill down into Illinois, and let's go to Chicago. Client Discount Store. Okay. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to type in discount and hit enter. Now, notice that the search text was not found. This search functionality is only going to search on visible data within the report. That's why I came back in here and I collapsed Illinois back up completely, so it doesn't find that data. So in a drill down report, be careful of that. You may know that, gosh, I know there's results for Illinois here someplace, but you aren't going to find them if it's not expanded, if Illinois doesn't appear or that company name doesn't appear. Again, in a non-drill down report where all of the data is visible, all the time you just have to page to the different pages where it's visible, then that search functionality becomes much more useful. And just keep in mind that find is going to find the first instance, next is going to find the next instance until you run out. All right, next up here is the export options. I'm not going to talk about these in detail here, but you can take a report, which I currently have rendered in HTML using the HTML viewer, and export it to a number of different formats. But one thing I do want to point out here is that in most cases, the export file is only going to contain the visible data, the currently visible data in the report. So if I were to export this to Word, it's going to show the United States only to the level of the states. It'll show England to the level of the cities. So it has United Kingdom, countries within, not exactly equivalent to states in the United States, but a geopolitical entity, and then down into the cities and so forth. So Uttermost Bike Shop would appear in that exported Word document, but the ones in the companies in Birmingham, Berkshire, and Berks wouldn't show up. Okay, so just keep that in mind about the export format. Next up is the refresh button, and this does what it expects. You can click on it, and it refreshes the report. Most importantly, what this does is it causes a new or a fresh query of the data source. So this is obviously very useful when the data changes so that you don't have to close and reopen the report. You can just click on refresh. I'll go ahead and do that. And it re-renders the report going out and getting that fresh data. Notice it didn't preserve my drill down state. So just be careful of that. If you've meticulously gone through a report, drill down to different sections using the data, and then you refresh it, then you'll start over from scratch. Okay, then next up is print. So the nice thing here is that you can print one or more pages of the report. But again, only what's currently visible in the viewer. So the first time that you use this in an instance of Internet Explorer, you'll get this warning dialog. Okay? Because what it's doing is it's prompting you to install an ActiveX printing component. Okay? All right, so I can look at the options here. So always install software, never install software, ask me every time. Fortunately, ask me every time is the default. And I can choose to install or not install the software. Now, one really big downside of this is that the dialog box doesn't identify what's going to be installed. So frankly, you just got to kind of trust me that it's an ActiveX component that supports printing and reporting services, because this dialog box definitely doesn't tell you that. You can kind of imply that because of the fact that I clicked on the print icon, but there's nothing there. Okay, so I'll click on install. It'll go through, install the component, and then once it's done installing, I get this fairly typical, although minimal, print dialog. Now, I don't have any real printers attached to this computer, and so I can't print out anything, but I could go to properties and print a file and select a print range and so forth and collate them if the printer that I select supports that. So you have a number of options. One nice thing is that you have this preview button, and so you can preview what the report is going to look like. So in this case, I don't have anything expanded, and so it's only going to display that level of detail. And I can click to the next and previous pages. In this particular case, I have it in portrait view. All of the columns didn't fit, so I actually have 2 pages. All right, I could go ahead and print it, or I could change the margins. So on the left side, I'll go down to 0.3, and on the right side, I'll go down to 0.3 as well. And now you can see that I have only a single page. Yeah, only a single page. All right, and then I can also navigate to different pages in the preview mode. So a reasonably nice preview feature if you're not absolutely sure that what you've selected is what you want to print. You can go out and look at it, and that's going to give you a preview based fairly loosely on the properties of the printer that you've selected. Okay, and then the final icon here is this Export to Data Feed. This button lets you create a data feed document that you can then import into a Power Pivot for Excel workbook or share as part of a data feed. So this is going to use basically the same technology as if you use a newsreader to read internet news. Same basic technology. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is how parameters work. So I'm going to come here to the Products by Category Multi-Valued. This requires some parameters. And so before it even renders the report, I'm prompted for the parameter values. So I can select this down here. I'll go with bikes. That populates the second parameter, which is subcategory. So these are linked together. That's how this particular report was designed. But that's not necessarily always the case. You can independently select parameters if they're not linked in some way. And I'll look at mountain bikes and touring bikes. And then I can view the report. And then after I've viewed the report, I can select this again. Maybe I want to add road bikes this time. View the report again, and I get a report now that includes all 3 types of bikes. And one nice thing about this report design is that it displays within the report body what the parameter selections were. This is really nice because if I were to now export this to a PDF format, if I didn't include that information, there'd be no indication whatsoever of the parameters that were used in order to create this report. So I advise you to generally do that. A lot of people like to put them at the bottom of the report. In the reports, in the sample reports, I have a mix. Sometimes the bottom, sometimes the top. Okay, another nice thing is that say I'm working with a report, I've selected the parameters, I'm going to be spending a couple hours analyzing the data, I want to use full screen. Notice that there's this little icon here to show and hide the parameters. So I can get that out of the way. That's particularly helpful if I have a lot of parameters for a report. So in this case I only had 2, they fit very nicely on a single line, but if this particular report had 20 parameters, you know, the parameter pane may take up half the page. And so it's nice to be able to get that out of the way. Okay, so that's the first look at the HTML viewer. There's one other thing I want to show you. But the nice thing about the viewer is that it exposes just about all of the interactive features that you can build into reports. And that provides a really easy way for users to work with reports and their data. It's a good default format to initially display the report. And then the user, if they want, they can export it into some of the other non-interactive formats, such as Word or a PDF and so forth. Now, keep in mind, though, that the viewer doesn't magically imbue interactive features into a report that doesn't have any. Okay? So, in fact, in this particular report, there's no drill down features because I didn't build the report with drill down features. So the HTML viewer is not going to do that for me. Okay, and so then one of the other interactive features is document maps. So if I come down here into the reseller cumulative sales, that has 3 parameters. There's default values of basically all the different values, but it also has a document map. Now, document map is this navigational feature right over here. What it does is it makes it easy to jump around to the information that you're interested in. It's essentially an interactive table of contents, and you can create map bookmarks on any of the groups within the report. So this report was designed with those bookmarks built into it. And basically what it did is it built them in at all geographical levels. So the topmost level, each of the the continents, each of the countries, and then each of the individual companies that are included within the United States. So look at Canada as well, and there you can see the different options. Okay, so I'm going to click on Warehouse, and that's going to take me directly to the United States and the warehouse list. Okay, so this is particularly nice because, as you can see, we're already up to page 132. If I go to the end, you can see that there's 157 pages in this report. And so scrolling or entering random numbers, say I wanted North America, middle of Canada. I know there's 157 pages, so maybe I'll go to page 75 and see where I am and guess. And no, I'm still in Europe. Okay, there's the start of North America though, so I'm a little bit closer, but I want to be in the United States, so I guess maybe 125 next, and 124. Go to that page. No, I went too far, so that's kind of impossible. And paging and so forth. So document map is a real nice way of letting the user jump to the information that they're interested in. If the data in the report, if it makes sense with the groups that you build into the report. Okay? This is fairly granular as far as groups go, so won't work for all kinds of reports.